Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay. The Gathering, a meeting of 200 or so progressive thought leaders invited to Burlington, Vermont, was a meeting to talk about what comes next, the coming 2020 elections, to help create a vision, a policy framework for what candidates might run on, what people might fight for. And it comes at a rather momentous time in human history. As I said in one of the other interviews, 2020 is maybe the most important elections any place ever, given what's at stake. So the gathering was called by Jane O'Meara Sanders, who's co-founder of the Sanders Institute, now serves as a fellow. Jane served as a political consultant, has held appointed and elected office. And Jane was the driving force behind the gathering, and she now joins us here in our studio at the gathering. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Paul.
So your hopes going in, and I heard this a little bit in the email back and forth, is we don't want to spend all this time trashing Trump. We really want to talk policy and what a different world might look like. So how do you feel that was achieved?
Oh, I was astounded. I mean, we had 49 speakers in 48 hours, and actually I think a few added on during the weekend. And it was thought-provoking, inspiring, much better than I had ever envisioned. And I had pretty high thoughts for this weekend. We came, as you mentioned, thought leaders. And what I realized by the end is they're not just progressive thought leaders. They are bringing the heart to their hearts to the causes, to the issues that we talked about, and they're leading from values and principles, and then their intellect informs the rest. But the first layer is the values and the principles that we espouse for democracy and for human dignity.
The times we live in are, as I said, this may be the coming election, may be the most important ever, to a large extent because of climate change. If a climate denier is elected again, or if a corporate Democrat is elected who pays lip service to the climate crisis and doesn't take effective action, we're kind of screwed. We're already close to 1.5 or 2 degrees above, in terms of warming, above pre-industrial averages. The tipping point is really within sight. In terms of the messaging of the extent of the crisis and what to do about it, do you think that was addressed here?
I think it was. I think that people walked away with the concept that, and with the realization that time is running out, and what we need to do is not just ask people what to do or inform people about the issue. I mean, one of the things that we need to do, and the reason for the gathering, was to amplify each other's voices, resonate on the issues. And we need leadership that actually says, I'm sorry, this is a crisis. We need to address it now, not next year, not the year after. And it's leadership at the local, the statewide, the national, the international level, not just people who are elected, but people who want to make a difference in the world. At the end of the climate crisis panel, Bill McKibben said that we need to have health care, Medicare for all, $15 minimum wage, and 100% renewable. And those are not the only things, but the 100% renewable and the focus on the climate crisis has to be at the outset of anybody running for office.
Yeah,
Where do you stand? Where do you stand?
Absolutely. And I'm not hearing it. Even with progressive candidates, it's like, and I have to say, even to some extent, Bernie, although he's certainly better than any of the others that actually have a mainstream role, but the extent of the threat is not like it's got to be front and center. Where often it's like a shopping list, like healthcare, Medicare for all, $15, climate. Well, climate is it doesn't matter if you get $15 an hour if we ain't here.
Right.
And there seems to be a feeling, both amongst people that work on this issue in the climate sector, but people involved in political campaigns, that if you talk about the extent of the crisis, you're just going to scare people. Well, shouldn't we be scaring people?
I think so. I think you're absolutely right. And we have to start. This, I believe, a lot of people have conferences and that's the end game. Let's have a conference. This was a jumping off point. We want to have the conference inform future action. And what I heard from the questions from the attendees, the hallway conversations, was that we have to hold people accountable, and it's not from a perception of you have to vote for this or vote for that. What do you understand about the climate crisis? Where do you stand on it? What are you willing to do, and what are you not willing to do? And don't talk to me about in sound bites. Don't talk to me to say, oh, of course, oh, the climate crisis is really bad. But no, I'm not going to fight the pipelines in the States. I'm not going to not take fossil fuel industry money. I mean, I think that with the climate crisis, I think more than anything else, we have to draw a very clear line and say, these are the expectations. If you don't do this, I don't care how progressive you are, supposedly, we're not interested.
It's got to be a criteria people use on who they vote for.
Yeah.
But to do that, we got to get into those sections amongst working people who right now, climate's barely on the top 20 of their list. You know, we did some work in southern Pennsylvania. We've done work around Baltimore where we're based. You know, and without doubt, the day-to-day suffering is such that people, they want that addressed. But this thing has to be framed in a way that it is today. It's not some great future prospect. And it's your kids at stake, your grandkids at stake. And that messaging's not getting through much to ordinary people.
Well, I mean, when you look at the floods and the torrential rains and the fires, there is no analysis of that on the news. They cover it like voyeurs to say, oh, look at this terrible thing that's happening. Oh, these people are helping. This is good news. You know, the community is coming together. Great. But they don't ever ask why. Why is this occurring? Cover the science. And that is not happening. They need to cover the science.
Every day.
Yeah, every day, but they're not, and we need to insist
we're
they
going
do.
to be. We are, and we're
Good.
going to be every day doing science, because what's missing from the whole discourse for ordinary people kind of in on the issue, is the sense of urgency.
Yeah.
You know, people that understand what's going on, we feel a sense of urgency, but there's still this feeling that you can't tell people that because it's going to, you know, overwhelm them.
Well,
It's like treating people like kids.
Partly, but I also think that people don't want to just focus on a problem without a solution. And many of the people that are speaking about it or looking for votes don't want to deal with the solutions. So I do think that we have an opportunity that at this point in time to lay out what this administration has been doing in terms of rolling back air and water and all this and all these regulations, and to recognize the support they're giving to the fossil fuel industry with our tax dollars and not to renewables, which would help us, but to be able to say there is an answer. The House just turned, and we should be making it very clear to the Democrats that are in control of the House, are you going to do something? If you're not going to do something, thank you very much. We're not going to be supporting you. And we say to the people, this is what you can do, and this is what we expect of you as leaders in your community or as elected leaders, and we need your voice out there. And then we can make a change. I think people need to not just focus only on the climate crisis, because as you say, that's what everybody's saying. Oh, everybody's going to be very nervous about it and very concerned. They should be, but we have to give them a path forward. We have to say, how are you going to be able to make a difference?
One of the things that came out of the conference was the discussion of a new Green Deal, a Green New Deal, I should say, which seems to make a lot of sense, but it makes a lot of sense when you already understand why we need a new Green Deal, Green New Deal. Most people don't even get the urgency of that.
Well, I think, I think the bully pulpit really matters. And the people in that room, and hopefully the people that watched on live stream, and the people that watch the things we'll be putting out in the future at the Sanders Institute will understand more. And real news. I mean, you've been talking to people this entire time. To have the real news be covering the science, covering the facts, and having people who are in a position to lead their communities to solution, that helps. Now, the problem is that so many of the solutions or so many of the approaches seem to be protesting only. And that's not what protests are very important, but that's not enough. What we need to do is demand accountability, demand that they don't take money from pipeline, they don't support banks that fund pipelines. They don't, we need to say to our representatives and to the media, we expect you to ask and answer serious questions that are complex and not just give us sound bites.
I got a suggestion for the Sanders Institute.
Okay.
One of the things I learned over the weekend was how Barcelona has created a publicly owned energy company.
Yes.
And it seems to me more of that kind of program, like here's what, if you actually took over a city, a major city in this country, here's what a city can do. Here's what a state could do. Also, in terms of Congress, I think there's going to be a real fight over whether real hearings are going to be held over what to do about climate change or trash Trump. Now, I have no problem with trashing Trump, but if the focus is on that, it's just more of the same rhetorical battle.
I agree. I think unfortunately, the Democrats have a great opportunity, and unfortunately, I'm concerned that they are going to blow it and focus on investigations. People want them to pay attention to the real issues facing their lives. And what's happening now, I know I really want Medicare for all, I really want $15 minimum wage. We want a lot of things and a lot of new ideas, and replicable policies came out of this conference. But in terms of the climate crisis, what we need to do is focus on it. And if they don't deliver to the voters that put them in, I think that it's over. I think it's over for that party.
For us humans.
Well, but no, because I think if they don't focus on real change, on affecting real change, especially in this area, I think that we will be able to lead from below.
The logic is, other than the fact that a whole section of the Democratic Party is very tied up with finance and fossil fuel, but set that aside for a second, they accept the dictatorship of corporate media. What I mean by that is the corporate news media is making a fortune out of this partisan battle.
Yeah.
Not only does it drive ratings, because it's like watching a football game, then the parties spend over $1 billion, billions on advertising and campaigns.
Yeah.
So the partisan war is the news media loves. So the logic goes, if we have a hearing on climate change, they won't cover it.
That's what they said. Actually, they have said that to us, that the ratings on climate change don't matter. But then at the same time, the ratings on fires and floods, they cover ad nauseum
Endlessly.
Now, how hard would it be to cover them in a way that said, these are the facts, this is climate change at work, this is why it's happening, and this is what you can expect to happen later. And these parts of the world are going to be underwater, and there's going to be mass migration, and there's going to be food shortages. They don't have to cover it all at once, but when you look at things and you see the same footage for 3 days of terrible personal pain that people are experiencing, the loss of their homes and of their communities and even their cities, instead of saying, okay, we don't have to put that on again, we can keep informing the people. That's one of my concerns is, I think the Fourth Estate has been letting us down. A democracy requires an informed electorate. The media, the Fourth Estate, is supposed to inform the public. They're not doing that. They're you know, they're selling ratings. They're covering but they're not even thinking deeply about it, because if they covered the fires and explained them, they'd get the same ratings.
See, I agree with you, but I have no expectation that corporate news media is going to change. But this Democratic-controlled House, if they're serious about climate change, they could create hearings with as much drama
Yes.
as the Kavanaugh hearings. You know, subpoena the head of Exxon. You know, create a real dramatic presentation.
Like they did with tobacco years ago under Henry Waxman.
What they did with tobacco, exactly. But they have to want to do it, and
Yes.
that's going to be a fight.
It is going to be a fight, because people don't want to take on the banks. They don't want to take on the fossil fuel industry. They don't want to take on the large donors and the big corporations. So my hope is there will be, and I know there will be, a group of people that will in the new Congress. And the Progressive Caucus in the Congress is pretty good.
There is a group now pushing for hearings on a new Green New Deal.
Yeah. So I think we'll see some, for once, moving in the right direction. And I think the fact that under the Trump administration, so many things have been so difficult for not just climate crisis, but everything, that I think people are beginning to realize we can't take 6 more years of this. We can't possibly survive that well. I mean, I guess that's dramatic, but
A lot of people won't survive it.
right, yeah, a lot of people won't, and we need to. I think people are getting that, and I have more faith in the American people. I think that they're going to pay attention if they can be informed, and that's why places like The Real News and the Sanders Institute and all the people that were here from different organizations are so important, because you started it with, I don't think they know. And that education is extremely important.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.